and good afternoon, everyone. And I'm so honored to be here with you all. Thank you all for all you do for your communities and our state. And I'm just delighted to share with you this resource of mindful self-compassion. And hopefully it can assist you in your leadership efforts and in your personal and professional lives. So I would like to share a presentation, and it will be a PowerPoint guided presentation today. Anytime if you'd like to comment or ask questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put your questions into a chat box. Also, this is really just time for you to rest and take a moment of compassion. So if it's easier for you to have your cameras off, that's fine. And if you want to keep your cameras on, that's okay too. Yes, and I already have a request to turn my volume up a little bit. So let me do that. Make sure everybody can hear me okay. And let's test this. How do you hear me? Okay, great. All right, so this will be about an hour-long session, and yeah, take this moment for yourself. And also, if you'd like to put in the chat box, maybe who you are, or your role, perhaps your leadership role, or it could be in a community, personal leadership role as a parent, as a older sister, brother, however you see yourself as a leader in your life. I'm just curious to see how you recognize that and identify yourself. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And also, if you have access to,
you sure?
If you have access to mute yourself right now, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so again, so the session today is called Leading Others Through Self-Compassion. And we are doing this together in partnership, of course, with Resilient Georgia. And I am with Chatham County Safety Net Planning Council. And we've been implementing mindful self-compassion program for over 2 years now. So it's really nice to be bringing this to you all. And just a little bit about myself. Again, I'm Vira Salzburn, and I have background in educational background in leadership, organizational behavior, and management, and also certified. I'm certified as through Project Management Institute as a certified associate project manager, and also I've been teaching mindful self-compassion for 2 years, practicing mindfulness and yoga for over 6 years, and some of the other things that I do along with some community partners include teaching workshops and training in suicide prevention and intervention, and various community resiliency and trauma-informed training. All right, so I would like to also start with this poem that I usually use for the mindful self-compassion workshops. If you've been in some of our workshops before, you may have heard it. If you hate poetry, you may like this one. So let's just give it a try. It goes like this. If you start the day without caffeine, if you can always be cheerful, ignoring aches and pains, if you can resist complaining and boring people with your troubles, if you can eat the same food every day and be grateful for it, if you can understand when your loved ones are too busy to give you any time, if you can take criticism and blame without resentment, if you can conquer tension without medical help, if you can relax without alcohol, if you can sleep without the aid of drugs, then you are probably a dog. So I have a dog, by the way, so he's somewhere in the background. But this is just a reminder for all of us that human beings, as human beings, in fact, we are in some ways less perfect than our four-legged friends. And also, we do rely on different things, and sometimes we complain, sometimes we aren't happy about the way things are, and that's okay, and that's just a part of our human nature. And how can we begin to accept? And I'm not even talking today about fully accepting yourself just as you are, but just beginning setting an intention to accept yourself with all your flaws and imperfections just as you are. And actually that will lead to change. Psychologist Carl Rogers said, "It is when I fully begin to accept myself just as I am, then I begin to change. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And also, do you find yourself sometimes, rather than being a human being, being a human doing, that you're caught up in doing a lot of things, or thinking about doing a lot of things in the future, or thinking about all the things that you've done in the past? So these are our tendencies of our minds to do so. And it's really interesting to even learn from our four-legged friends, dogs, cats, how they are able to stay in the present moment all the time. They live in the present moment. And how can we learn to do that as well? So these are some of the things that we'll touch on today. And also, I just wanted to quickly look at the chat box and just honor your presence and your leadership roles. And a lot of you see work with high need individuals and communities and families. That's wonderful. And I love some of the personal notes: grandmothers, parents, yoga instructors, community leaders, directors and founders organizations, and and someone is a leader in their own marriage, celebrating 34th anniversary. Oh, wow, that's amazing. And that's wonderful. And just thank you all for being here, and for all the service that you do through your families and through your organizations and through your lives. All right, so the learning objectives for today will be as follows. We will gain an understanding of mindful self-compassion. And it's actually a concept that was coined by Dr. Kristin Naff. So we'll just talk about what this whole idea, this whole program of mindful self-compassion means. And we'll also talk about how being more mindful and self-compassionate can benefit you as a leader, and also can benefit you as a leader of an organization, community, and at home as well in your personal life. And we will touch on some things, how you can practice self-compassion in your daily life. And I will also share some resources of mindful self-compassion with you all. All right, does that sound okay? Hopefully. And I would like to invite you all for this soft landing practice. Now, as we're all here, in some way physically present, virtually physically present, I would just like for us to bring our hearts and minds into this moment. And again, just taking this as a moment of rest and awareness and relaxation. So I just invite you to sit comfortably, wherever you are right now. And if your environment is a little bit more noisy, that's okay. And perhaps if you wish, you can close your eyes, you don't have to, and just take a few deep breaths. Maybe taking your inhale on the count of 3, Breathing in 1, 2, 3. And your exhale may be on the count of 6. Breathing out for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just a few more like this for yourself. Breathing in 1, 2, 3. And breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe one more time like this. 1, 2, 3. And breathing out for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And just taking a note of your body right now, how your body is positioned. Maybe there's a need to get yourself even a little bit more comfortable, shift yourself in your chair or on the surface you're on right now. Maybe you wish to stand up and stretch, that's okay. And just noticing in your body if there's a presence of any pleasant sensations. Maybe you've already had some lunch. Maybe there's a pleasant sensation somewhere in a very neutral place, maybe in your shoulders or again in your belly, in your hands. And also noticing if there are any unpleasant sensations, maybe aches or pains or discomfort. And just making room for those sensations. Maybe just saying to yourself, it's okay, I got this. And maybe recognizing that other people also may struggle or have aches and pains. And again, maybe just taking another breath in and breathing into those places of discomfort. And simply breathing out any unnecessary tension. And again, maybe another breath all the way in and all the way out. All right, so this is our very quick, short, soft landing practice. And I wanted to invite you to do this practice just because a lot of times when we shift from work to home or from home to work, we don't give ourselves that moment of pause. There's sometimes no time or we forget to. And sometimes having that soft landing into whatever next step is, whatever next transition is, switching your hats, walking into a meeting or walking out of the meeting, and just simply taking that moment to arrive into whatever the next part of the day may be is actually really important for a few reasons. First of all, just to be aware, simply aware of yourself, where you are, your bodily sensations, your emotions, your thoughts. And also just allowing yourself to use your breath, which is a valuable tool and we always have it with us, to use your breath to energize yourself and also to relax yourself. And one of the simple techniques, ratio breathing. And I hear someone, sorry. Thank you. And one of the simple techniques called ratio breathing. So you breathe in for the count of 3 or 4 or 5 and breathing out for twice as long is actually quite effective technique to just help your body relax. And just remembering that relaxed mind lives in relaxed body. So a lot of times our bodies hold a lot of tension, and allowing yourself to relax and soften can also help you actually think clearly, make better decisions, and alleviate some of that stress. How was this short practice for you? Was it okay if you were able to practice just a few moments? Hopefully. Right. So these are the founders. If you're able to see your screen, these are the founders of the Mindful Self-Compassion Program, Dr. Kristin Naff and Dr. Christopher Garmer. Again, if you've never heard of the Mindful Self-Compassion Program, I highly recommend researching, looking into their work. Dr. Naff is more on the research side of mindful self-compassion program. She's done a lot of research on the effects of self-compassion in many different areas, in psychology, and how self-compassion helps people who struggled with all sorts of mental health disorders, chronic pain, how it's actually helpful for individuals who, let's say, maybe serve in the military. And actually there is a research showing that self-compassion can help reduce or even prevent post-traumatic stress disorder. So some very interesting work. And Dr. Christopher Garmer, he's with Harvard Medical School, and he's more on the therapy side of things. And him and Dr. Naff, they came together to create a program, and actually mindful self-compassion program is an 8-week course that's delivered over the span of 8 weeks, 2 hours a week. And then here on our end of the program, we deliver mindful self-compassion workshops as 1-hour sessions, 1-day workshops, 8-week sessions, just to make it accessible and help people learn about this resource. I was very fortunate to be trained directly by Dr. Naff and Dr. Garmer, and just experiencing their presence and wisdom, and hopefully it rubbed on me just enough so I can share it with others as well. So this is something I would love to share with you. The Mindful Self-Compassion program is built on this concept of safety. And anytime when we teach the workshops, we actually start with teaching the safety model. And on your left-hand side, you see, if you're able to see the circles on your screen, it's like 3 embedded circles. This is the safety model that we use in our workshops just to navigate through the workshop and help participants really be aware and assess their own safety and comfort. And that quintessential question of mindful self-compassion is, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? A lot of times we don't ask this question to ourselves. In fact, we forget to even ask ourselves about our own needs. And what is helpful about this model is really recognizing your own needs throughout the process of learning. And for instance, when we are in our comfort zone or safe zone, one of the easier ways to recognize, if you feel comfortable or challenged or overwhelmed is by noticing and recognizing your bodily sensations. So let me ask you this: when you feel very comfortable and cozy and just safe, what are some of those physical sensations in your body that you can name? What do you notice? If you'd like, you can put it in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself. I'm just curious, what happens in your body when you are safe and comfortable? So relaxation, regular heartbeat, thank you, feeling relaxed, warmth in the chest, slow, relaxed breathing, the sense of peace and calm. That's right. So some of those physical sensations, muscle tension is gone, or for the most part is gone. The breath is more regular. The mind is not racing, right? So this is our comfort zone, our safe zone. And anytime when you're in this zone, this is your safe space. What about some of the sensations that you can think of when you feel challenged? And we're not talking about bad stress, we're talking about good stress. When there is a certain amount of stress present in your body, you feel challenged, how does that show up? So there is increased heart rate, that's right. There are butterflies in the stomach, that's right. There's that sensation that maybe a knot a little bit building up in the stomach, high awareness, that's right. Feeling more energized, more excited, that's right. So when we're challenged, some people say even having headache, and that may be letting us know that we're pushing too far, maybe into overwhelm zone. The tension is building up in the shoulders, sometimes in the throat and chest, that's right. So challenge zone is actually our ultimate learning zone, and we are most focused, we're most present, and we are we're most absorbed full of the material when we're challenged just enough by whatever we're learning or by the task we're doing. So think of maybe children in a classroom. When they're too cozy and too comfortable, sometimes they fall asleep and they're too bored, right? But when we challenge them a little bit more, that's where their alertness wakes up and, their attention is there. So how about when you feel overwhelmed by something? How does that show up in your body? What are some of the sensations you would associate with being overwhelmed? So sometimes tired, that's right. Sometimes we shut down, our nervous system shuts down, lower back and shoulders tension and even pain sometimes. There's the sense of just giving up, again, the energy leaving us. Some people on the other end may experience high energy and anxiety and irritability, a sense of panic, sometimes tension, sadness. Exactly. So we can go either into that fight or flight mode when we're overwhelmed, or sometimes we may go into that freeze mode. So just recognizing that and recognizing your bodily sensations, our breath may get really shallow. We're more likely to stay in our chest breathing rather than our belly breathing. When babies are relaxed, they breathe with their belly. And when we have a lot of tension, we breathe with our chest. And heart rate may be getting really high, or on the other hand, really low. So again, just noticing what that is like. So anytime when you feel overwhelmed, either during this workshop or in general at work, when you walk into a meeting, taking strategies to bring yourself back into that comfort zone is really important, or that safe zone. And some of the strategies may be mindfulness, using your senses, noticing the colors, hearing the sounds, touching the textures, sometimes using those grounding techniques, really pressing your feet into the ground or just the surface you sit on, really noticing yourself in the chair or wherever you're positioned. And sometimes even allowing yourself to regulate your attention, and move your attention to something completely different. Maybe even start making a list of groceries you need to buy or places you'd like to visit, because when you feel overwhelmed, it's actually really difficult to learn anything, to process information, to make clear decisions. And this safety model from the Mindful Self-Compassion program is actually based on this Yerkes-Dodson law, which is the model on the right-hand side, which actually shows the relationship between arousal and performance. And it's originally developed by psychologists Robert Yerkes and John Dodson over 100 years ago, actually in 1908. And the law dictates that performance increases with physiological or mental arousal, but only to a point. And when levels of arousal become too high, performance decreases, right? So when we are too cozy, performance is low. When we are just have enough stress, arousal is just at the right level, that's where our performance is at highest. And when, again, we get too overwhelmed, too much stress, performance decreases again. So when you work with different teams, or maybe when you even work with yourself, just remembering that. And sometimes, maybe as a facilitator or a leader, you walk into a meeting, you walk into a group, and just noticing the dynamics of the group. Maybe if the people are a little bit too comfortable, too cozy, too sleepy, maybe having an activity to shake them up a little bit, wake them up, maybe doing something more interactive. And then again, when people are too overwhelmed, allowing them to come back into the comfort zone. And one of the strategies that I learned from Thich Nhat Hanh, who is the Buddhist teacher and meditation teacher and peace work leader, he talks about this concept of watering the flowers. So maybe if you're facilitating a group and maybe there's a lot of stress or some kind of problem you're trying to solve in your organization, actually having physically a bouquet of flowers on the table, and if it's not there, that's okay, maybe some kind of object, so each person can just hold to that bouquet of flowers and name the things that they appreciate about others in the organization. And while one person is talking, everybody is quietly listening. So in that way, cultivating the sense of gratitude, which, as we know, gratitude is linked to positive emotions. And so each person has a chance to water the flowers and say something positive and something they're grateful for, maybe, or something they appreciate about other people or person in organization. So this is just one of the ways to start creating that sense of compassion and gratitude and safety. All right, so these are just a lot of introductory concepts. And one more thing that I would like to mention. So let me ask you this, and if you don't mind putting it in the chat box, maybe if you don't mind asking yourself, why am I here? Why am I here? So just asking yourself that question and putting in the chat box, why are you here? And it could be very pragmatic or, just basic answer. I have to be, because I'm part of Resilient Georgia, or I'm actually interested in mindful self-compassion, or maybe there's a deeper answer because I want to be more kind to myself, or I've been criticizing myself a lot. So whatever comes up for you, I'm just curious, why are you here? And while you're putting down your answers, I just wanted to mention this story one time about this meditation teacher. It was a prominent meditation teacher, and he was invited into this big conference to give a big speech, and everybody was anticipating for him to say something, just this amazing speech. So he comes up on the stage and says, enlightenment involves two things: intention and attention. Thank you very much. And he leaves. And there is a lot of depth in that. It was a very short speech, but there is a lot of depth in that. So what is intention? Intention is really setting a purpose for ourselves, our teams, our organizations. I mean, as our agencies, we have mission statements, and sometimes maybe we need to revisit those. And the revisiting, maybe even, what are we doing and why are we doing it? So it's that determination to act in a certain way. And sometimes those intentions may evolve and change. So just checking in with yourself on a daily basis, maybe as an individual, or if you're about to do a task, what is my intention behind the task? And also being aware of the attention as you are placing your attention into the task or placing your attention into a project. What we pay attention to grows. What we pay attention to grows. And if we pay attention to something stressful or unpleasant, we give that thing a power. And if we pay attention to something, kindness and compassion, and cultivating those positive states of mind, we grow those states too. So paying attention to something it's really giving that thing your energy and your time. And those are unrenewable resources, as Brene Brown puts them. So just really being aware of paying attention. And a lot of times I like to talk about the quality of attention, right? Because we can, let's say, be aware and pay attention to the fact that, let's say, we are stressed with a task. We're doing a task and I'm so stressed right now. This is just too much. And the way we pay attention to it, we actually increase maybe stress by criticizing ourselves, or maybe we can pay attention with kindness and say, this is difficult. This brings me some ache and pain, emotionally, even physically. And how can I be more kind to myself right now? So just changing that inner dialogue, that inner tone, and that in itself can also be helpful in reducing stress and also growing something more beautiful and helpful and pleasant rather than stressful. Okay, makes sense. And I'm curious just to see your intentions for today and why you're here. So some of the answers in the chat box: I'm trying to grow professionally as a leader and wanting to know more about being compassionate and mindful with myself and people I serve, to learn and consider mindfulness and self-care more intentionally, because I know what I should do, but I don't know it for myself. Do as I say, not as I do. And that's probably a lot of us can relate to that. to continue to grow my self-compassion and kindness skills. I am my biggest critic, yes. And people agree with each other. And then someone else said, I feel we are all trying to find self-care and mindfulness as leaders of programs related to service during the pandemic. I personally am feeling more quick to respond harshly as problems occur. I need to intention my response, yes. And start taking better care of myself and be more intentional in remaining calm. So thank you all. So again, as we put things down, a lot of times goals for ourselves, intentions, and a lot of times how do we relate even to these goals? It's like, I have all this thing you gotta do, or wow, I'm aware of this. That's great, right? So one of my mindfulness teachers, she told me this trick. Instead of asking yourself, why is this happening? Why am I doing this? The eyebrows narrow, the body tenses up, feeling unpleasant. Instead of saying why, saying, wow, raising the eyebrows, bring this component of curiosity and wow, actually, I know something about myself. Wow, actually, there's opportunity for me to grow, right? So going from why to wow. And I've been doing this quite a lot lately, and it's really nice. It actually really, really helps. And even in conversations with others, when someone shares something with me, rather than being, why did you do this? Being like, wow, that's interesting. So just kind of going, using that as a little tool there. All right, so what is compassion? I really do like the definition that Brene Brown provides. Compassion is the courage to see the cause of suffering and the willingness to alleviate it. So, and compassion comes from this Latin word to suffer with. And there is that element of courage when offering compassion to others. Because as human beings, our brains are very empathetic. And a lot of times to be in the presence of suffering and pain of others, it can be very, very painful for ourselves, right? So it takes really that bravery to show up even in the midst of suffering, and also to alleviate that suffering, to take some action, to do something about it, right? So if compassion is the courage to see the cause of suffering in others and to have the willingness alleviated, what is self-compassion? Oh, that's right. To see that I am suffering, to see the cause of my pain, the root cause of my suffering, and also to alleviate my own suffering, to relate to myself differently. Another way that you can think of self-compassion is really relating to yourself the way you would relate to your good friend in the moments of struggle, or in the moments when you experience misfortune or self-criticism. In fact, I would like to invite you all to this exercise. So think of a time maybe when you had a friend, a really good friend who maybe was struggling in some way. Maybe they were going through a relationship problem, or maybe felt like failure at work, or maybe it was your colleague whom you really care about, and they were sharing something difficult with you. How do you usually respond? How do you usually respond to your friend in those situations? So think about, what do you usually say, the words, then how do you say it, the quality of your attention, the quality of your words, your tone of voice, and also what is your body like, right? We do talk about body a lot when talking about mindfulness. What are some of those physical sensations or nonverbal gestures when you relate to your friend in those moments of struggle? And maybe if you don't mind sharing, maybe somebody wants to unmute yourself. That would be great. Compassion is a courage. Anyone wants to share? How do you usually respond to your friend?
Well, you're usually really warm, and you end up making sure you're keeping eye contact and showing that you're paying attention and listening and being engaged, and you listen to really hear what they're saying versus to figure out what to say next. And sometimes you don't have to say anything at all. Sometimes what they need is just to get it out. And so you try to be that, just the sounding board or that quiet person there in it with them when they're telling you their struggle.
Yes, thank you, Gabrielle. And maybe for some of you also this meant something, different. Maybe you'd usually say something nice to your friend, like, you got this, or I'm here for you, or just offering that presence, as Gabrielle mentioned, just being there with your friend. We have here a response in the chat box, lots of nodding and affirmation, right? So validation, right? Affirmation, validation, not necessarily a voice of reason, but just open listening. Yes, beautiful. And now I invite you to think about times when you feel maybe that's like a failure, or maybe you've experienced misfortune or struggle at work or home, or however that may have happened. And how do you usually relate to yourself in those moments? What do you usually say to yourself? And how do you usually say it to yourself? And what is your body like when you're doing that? And if anyone wants to share in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself.
I can share. Neha and I had the luxury of taking a full day training around this, and this exercise was horrifying to me when I actually wrote down everything. One of my favorite horrible things that I tell myself is, second place is the first loser. And I also say, toughen up, buttercup, a lot, which I would never in a million years say either one of those things to a good friend ever, or just anybody in general except myself.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. And can anyone relate? You're on your own worst or best critic? Yeah. And so Lainey shared that being overcritical, or Lisa shared being frustrated. I mean, we've done these workshops and these exercises a lot, and a lot of times people say, and it is horrifying. And when I did it the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so cruel with myself, and the things I say to myself, how I say those things, and also the body. Think of the body. When we are there to comfort others, we're so open and we just want to give a hug, and with ourselves, it's like, like there's the sense of stress and strife and tension. It's not like that for everyone. We have another response. Cameron said, I judge my own responses to things or how I say things a lot, right? So Neha also second that. So it's not the same for everyone. Actually, research shows that about 78% of people are more compassionate to others than to themselves. And then about 6% are more compassionate to themselves than others. And then the rest 16% are equally compassionate to others and themselves. And self-compassion is a skill. It really is. Just like we, teach kids kindness, or just like we teach skills of gratitude or mindfulness, it is a skill. And so the good news is that we have capacity for compassion, because we do treat others with compassion, a lot of times more so than ourselves. So compassion is there. And the skill of self-compassion is to make a U-turn with compassion and redirect it toward ourselves, or tuck ourselves in the circle of compassion, and really begin to build that awareness and noticing when the judge, I usually like to say to myself, here comes the judge. And, just building awareness of that critical voice or that unkind voice. And what that helps, right? When we label that experience, label that voice, we activate our thinking brain rather than being entangled in that emotional response or self-criticism or self-judgment. We become aware, we label it, and in that way, we can actually start to relate to ourselves, change our response differently. Yeah. So that leads us to actually, let me go here to these 3 components of self-compassion that Dr. Naff developed, and they really describe what mindful self-compassion is. So the first component is common humanity. The second component is self-kindness, and the third component is mindfulness. And it doesn't matter which order you look at them. So self-kindness is literally relating to yourself with kindness rather than judgment. And common humanity is about seeing the suffering in all people and yourself, and recognizing that you are not alone in your struggle, that other people struggle too. And that whatever situation you're in, whatever leadership situation you're in, that other individuals in leadership positions probably have experienced that too. I don't know if you've ever felt that, and I've heard this said several times before, but it can be quite lonely at the top. If you're in leadership positions, sometimes you can feel quite lonely there. And just sometimes recognizing that you're not though alone, and that other people in those positions actually might feel the same way, and a lot of times do. So building that recognition. And finally, mindfulness is just that building that awareness of your emotions, of your thoughts, of your bodily sensations, awareness of your external and internal environment. And again, mindfulness in its full bloom, it's not just about paying attention, but it's about that quality of attention and relating with kindness to your experience while you're experiencing it, good or bad. Right? But I did want to, it was really interesting to me. I was preparing this workshop. I led this training for leaders before. And so if maybe you're familiar with this, there's this training, it's called Search Inside Yourself. If not, I highly recommend looking into it. It's developed through Google. It's Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. And the training is primarily focused on building compassionate organizations and mindful leadership. And I was very fortunate to be to take the training and then to co-facilitate it with my colleague who lives in London and is a very experienced mindfulness teacher. And I was just so interesting to me to see that the components of this compassionate leadership model include motivation, empathy, and this cognitive component. So empathy is feeling as somebody else is feeling, however uncomfortable. Cognitive, seeking to understand what somebody else is thinking and why they came to hold their opinion, which requires that mindful, compassionate listening. And motivation is trying to take care of the concerns of others and reduce their suffering. Well, and I just thought, I don't know if it was a coincidence, but this is the model from the Search Inside Yourself program for compassionate leadership. And this is the model for self-compassion. And they actually overlap to me because common humanity component, it does take that empathy component into consideration, right? That we become aware that, oh, it could be me, or putting ourselves in the other person's shoes. And then being kind to yourself or others, you have to be motivated. Kindness is a verb, right? It's action. And cognitive aspect of that mindful awareness also is present. So I just thought it's really cool that these components overlap in both of these programs, teaching programs. Right, and I'm just really quickly, I already mentioned these components. So what's the opposite of self-kindness? It's actually self-judgment, right? So criticizing ourselves harshly. And, there can be that constructive criticism, which I wouldn't even call it criticism, I would call it encouragement. So think of a good coach, right? So you got this, or here's, let's get this area a little bit worked on or improved. But the harsh self-criticism or self-judgment, it almost tastes like a metal in the throat. Your throat may be clenching, your chest is tightening up. That's when we know that we are not being kind to ourselves, right? And the opposite of common humanity is actually isolation. So when we don't recognize that, wow, other people also struggle, or I'm not alone in this, we tend to actually isolate and hide a lot of times when we, again, don't recognize that other people may be experiencing the same situations or thoughts or failures. We experience a lot of shame, and shame in itself can also lead us to withdraw, to isolate, to hide, to ruminate, right? To just really disconnect. So recognizing common humanity is about connection, and the opposite of that is disconnect from others. And when we disconnect from others, we truly do suffer. And then the opposite of mindfulness, well, you could say mindlessness, or you could also think there are a few different things, but we like to focus on over-identification. So a lot of times, let's say when you experience a unpleasant emotion, let's say, usually I use the example of jealousy. So because it's not cool to be jealous, we don't want to be jealous, but we do get jealous. Anyone has been jealous before, right? So it's just one of the things that we as human beings do. In fact, dogs get jealous too. If you have dogs, pets do that. So, but a lot of times, there's this emotion, jealousy, and then the mind goes into its extremes. Here's jealousy, I don't want to feel it. I don't like it. Something is wrong with me for feeling jealousy. I'm a bad jealous person. So it quickly goes from having a feeling to over-identifying and having it stick to us. So mindfulness helps us really to create that awareness and spaciousness, and helps us to unstick and be like, oh, well, that's jealousy. Instead of like, why? It's like, wow, interesting. I'm just noticing this. I'm just feeling it. And how can I relate to myself in that moment with kindness, rather than, why can't I just be content, rather than, this is difficult. This is hurt. That's hurting me. It's unpleasant. Oh my gosh, poor me. Not with pity, but just a poor me. This is hard, right? So because every negative sensation and emotion are an opportunity for compassion and self-compassion, right? It's about noticing how much suffering that negativity and that emotion brings to your life. So when practicing mindfulness, the opposite again of mindfulness can be resistance. And in general, when practicing, just contentment or gratitude, mindfulness, compassion, self-compassion, a lot of times resistance can create a lot of stress and a lot of suffering. And if you lead an organization, let's say you're trying to implement a change, what's the first thing you usually face is resistance to change. So the same, and that's a lot of times stressful. But the same applies internally. A lot of times, let's say we're in a situation that is unpleasant. Maybe you're stuck in traffic. So that in itself is already painful. And then we apply resistance to our own feelings and to the situation. For example, I don't want to be stuck in this traffic. Gosh, all of these people are idiots. They can't drive, or I really need to get, home, or whatever that is. So we start resisting the situation, also resisting our own feelings. Like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to be frustrated. So there's this equation that one mindfulness teacher developed, that pain times resistance equals suffering. Pain times resistance equals suffering. In other words, pain is inevitable. Pain is present in life all the time. But it's when we resist pain, that's when we really magnify it and create more suffering. And the opposite equation to that is pain times acceptance or non-resistance equals freedom. Pain times acceptance equals freedom. Again, how can we begin to accept our own feelings and relate to ourselves with more kindness? And as Tara Brach, one of my favorite meditation teachers, says, the circle of our freedom is as large as the things we're willing to accept into it. The circle of our freedom is as large as the things we're willing to accept into it. And one of the things about practicing self-compassion, a lot of times when we try to use self-compassion as yet another hidden source of resistance, for example, I may feel, some unpleasant sensation, or I might feel discouraged by something, and I'll be like, okay, I'll just be more compassionate to myself, and let me just use the skill of self-compassion so I can feel better, because I don't want to feel bad right now. But that in itself is not accepting my own feelings, and not accepting my own feelings of, discouragement or disappointment. So giving ourselves compassion, not to feel better, but because we feel bad, that's really the purpose of the practice. In other words, think of a child who has the flu. The parent comforts the child and offers the child kindness and compassion, not to make the flu go away, because you can't. The flu needs to go through its process. But the parent takes care of the child because the child is sick and not feeling well, because the child is suffering. So the same goes with us. When we feel pain, that in itself calls for compassion, because we feel the pain, right? Not to try to make it go away. The pain, the feelings, they need to go through its own process. However, as a side effect, a lot of times compassion can reduce that, emotional inflammation and actually help heal faster. And in fact, being able to feel and being honest with ourselves, this is what I'm feeling right now. I feel angry, or I feel disappointed, or I feel frustrated, or I feel sad. It's really important, really, again, it takes that element of courage. Or I feel shame. Gosh, that's really hard, And how many times we do feel shame or guilt for some of the decisions we make, personal or professional. And recognizing that it's important to feel the feelings so we can heal them, right? If you have a broken bone, it hurts, and then you go to the doctor and it's diagnosed and you treat it. If you have a broken brain, a broken heart, how can we recognize that and doctor ourselves, or ask for help from others too? Okay, and here's just a little bit of note of how mindfulness and self-compassion relate. So mindfulness primarily focuses on acceptance of experience, right? This is what I'm experiencing right now. And self-compassion is focused on caring for the experiencer, right? And mindfulness asks the question, what am I experiencing right now? And there is that sense of curiosity. What is it? Yeah. And self-compassion asks, what do I need right now? What do I really need right now? And sometimes, you can ask this question in different ways. What do I need to hear right now? Or what do I need to for my physical health right now, or for my emotional health, or for my cognitive well-being, right? And also mindfulness invites you to feel your suffering, to feel your pain with that spacious awareness, without having it stuck to you, but just notice that it's there, create space for that. And self-compassion invites you to be kind to yourself while you suffer. Maybe asking yourself, what being kind to myself right now would look like in this moment of struggle, in this moment of stress, in this moment of uncertainty. Okay, and also, as we talk about self-compassion, a lot of times people, when they hear about it, they think, well, it sounds very soft and cozy and very feminine. And yes, there's that yin side to it, being with ourselves in a tender way. And also self-compassion calls for action, and there's that yang, strong side of self-compassion. So you can think of yin and yang side. So the yin side is about being with ourselves in a compassionate way. It's a more tender aspect of self-compassion. It's about comforting our physical body. So maybe, recognizing what is that physically you need, maybe stretching, or going for a walk, or comforting yourself somehow, either soothing touch or covering even with a blanket, whatever that may be, soothing your emotional body, maybe listening to something pleasant or redirecting your attention from something unpleasant and stressful to something pleasant. Maybe talking to someone who can help you soothe your emotions. And also validating yourself, just really saying, yes, this is exactly how I feel, validating your situation. Just at the beginning, when someone mentioned when you are there listening to your friend, or when you're trying to encourage your friend, giving affirmations to your friend, can you validate yourself and give affirmations to yourself? And that's the yin side. And the yang side, so if the yin is mama and then the yang is mama bear, so there is that strong, more masculine side of self-compassion, acting in the world in a compassionate way. When I look at social justice movements and people are, really fighting for their rights and trying to protect themselves and provide something good for themselves, well, that's definitely an act of self-compassion. It's more fierce aspect, right? Protecting yourself, saying no to the harmful things, saying yes to the good things, again, like a good coach, and then motivating yourself like that good inner warm encouraging voice. You got this, you can do this, let's do this, right? So just considering these two sides. And I would like to just offer you this model that maybe will help you to practice some of the steps of self-compassion. It's called PARC. So quick story, a husband is driving home after a very, very stressful day at work, and his wife is calling him. And she's like, honey, I just heard on the radio there's a maniac driving on the wrong side of the interstate. And the husband is like, honey, they're all doing this. So he's the one. Okay. But that's the point, sometimes we're so in our heads, and we have so much stress, and especially after a busy day at work, again, we have that tendency to ruminate and go through basically all the steps that we've relived the day again, or plan for the future. So the art of being, in the present moment and practicing self-compassion, I mean, that reduces stress because we're not in the past or future, really. And the first step of practicing that, art of being in the present moment is really just pausing whatever you're doing. And I often encourage people to create reminders in your environment, home or work, to help you to pause. I mean, if you need to have a big stop sign on your wall or something that says pause right now, or several different reminders, just to pause, take those deep breaths the way we did maybe at the beginning, in and out. And the next step is to ask yourself, what is that I need right now? And keeping the question in the background of your awareness, and just recognizing your bodily sensations, is there tension? Is there some discomfort? Recognizing your emotions, naming your emotions, and also thoughts. Maybe what are some of the thoughts are happening right now? Am I criticizing myself? Am I saying some things that are unkind and stressing me out? And finally, kindly responding to yourself and your needs, maybe by taking a walk, or stretching, or drinking a glass of water, or maybe emotionally or cognitively soothing yourself. So this is a PARC model that I just wanted to offer you. And I know we're running out of time, so maybe this would be the point to stop. And let me just quickly offer you some resources here. Here we go. So Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook is one of the resources you can use, and there are a lot of exercises that you can practice and questions you can answer. You can visit Dr. Naff's website and Dr. Garmer's website. You can also visit our website, chathamsafetynet.org. This was a very short session, and hopefully this was just a good introduction to you. But I would like to stop maybe sharing the screen and ask if you have any more questions, or Was this helpful? I know we just scratched the surface, but again, this is just a resource that maybe you can dive in a little bit more. Yes, so,
Thank you, Vira. So everyone, I put in the chat while we were introducing ourselves, if you had any questions or you have any follow-up questions, shoot those over to myself or Neha, and we'll make sure all of those go answered. And then we will also send you all the resources that Vira shared in an email. So we're just going to reply all to those of you that received this invite. And so those that could not attend will also receive the materials.
Great. And thank you again. I always overplan and prepare slides for 3 hours worth, but this is at least, I think hopefully this was helpful.
Thank you, Vira. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to speaking to you all soon, and have a great rest of your day.
Great. Thank you. Bye.